Okay, looks good. It's time. Thank you so much for accepting the SCI's information, Dr. Ricky. We really appreciate you being here. And on that note, let me give the audience some details about your background. So hello everyone. Ricky is a founder and CEO of multiple new age technology ventures, including the pioneers in upcoming disruptive domains. And his major work involves steering Privacy Virtuoso Global, which you might know as a boutique privacy consulting firm, where his current focus is on helping companies overcome the socio-technical challenges of trust and privacy issues, which have recently been surfacing around the IoT question, AI, and digital space at large. He is a privacy and trust engineer. His work involves developing and managing organization-wide data policies, standards, and processes. And of course, Dr. Ricky is accountable for establishing and leading teams which monitor the implementation of data policies across the given organization. With that, I would like to yield the floor to you, Dr. Ricky, and very excited to hear your lecture on IoT.
Hey, thank you, Adam. I hope I'm loud and clear to everyone. And thank you so
Yes.
much for bringing me in the loop. It's always nice to meet new people, and then especially to give back to the community. That's the biggest deal. I'm really excited at this whole collaboration which is happening at two different nations, and this is something which is really important because as some of the points, and thank you for the humble and an elaborate introduction. The way I put myself, if I have to give you three words to put myself, uh, I'm a DJ, I'm a chef, and then I'm a professional. Okay, so that's the way I put it up, right? uh, and the reason I put that thing in that particular order is definitely to bring a notion of confidence in everyone. I'm not a different. I'm just from the same batch. I'm just from the same batch. I'm one from you. I was really a spoiled brat. As a growing up kid. But then things happen, right? Things happen. So I was DJ for almost many years, and then I decided to pursue this professional career, and here I am, right? Uh, Most of the things which I will discuss will not be really a lecture per se. It will be something which I have learned hard way, or probably I have seen it from my superiors, and I will be talking more like a colleague, a professional, a contemporary professional, than someone who has seen the industry in a different landscape. Uh, so a bit of my background. The way Adam probably explained. So if I have to say that what exactly I do, I'm a regulatory consultant, and by regulatory consultant it means that I help my clients and customers to comply with regulations. It so happened that I was lucky and God was very kind to me that I got an opportunity to work with many regulators and countries where I was involved in making the regulation itself, right? So it's kind of give you upper hand that when you make the law, you can easily teach everyone how to break it, or sorry, how to comply with it, right? So you can find a way out, right? That's what I do, right? So I know that how to design the most efficient way of making certain things work, and then I also know that how exactly you can really obey those principles. Now, lesson number one of the day, if you ask me, do remember, my friend, that if when you say compliance, that's an overused term, which we will have a lot of discussion on those kind of terms. But when you say compliance, and when you say a lot of other things which is happening in industry, uh, the second term which all of you should be very very absolutely clear, and this is what I teach at a lot of colleges as well, that uh, somewhere people have blurred the line between compliance and ethics, right? There are two terms, compliance and ethics. They are completely different term, right? So for instance, If I borrow a car from Adam and say, hey, Adam, let's say, I need your car, I need to probably take my girlfriend out, right, for a dinner, right, and I take your car out. Now, Adam says, hey, you know what, Ricky, but it's okay, fine, you can take my car, but don't smoke in my car, right? And that's his condition, right? Now, if I don't smoke in the car, even when Adam is not around, that's ethics, right? So doing something right when nobody is watching you, that's ethics, right? And then when Adam is sitting next to me, I'm not smoking, that's compliance, right? Because I'm just there's a watchdog watching me, and that moderates my behavior, right? And that's something which everyone need to understand when you are in this industry, because my expertise is obviously digital and regulatory compliances. I don't, I mean, though I have done a bit of financial compliance, but I mean, right now I'm speaking to you as someone who understands a bit of digital compliance. So you have to be very careful that all of you, God bless, you will have a wonderful career. You are doing some wonderful work, and you will, God bless you, will do wonderful work. But then you will have to understand that, okay, your role will demand decisions, or your deliverables, as we call in our world. Your deliverables will be something which will be mapped either to ethics or to compliance. And you have to be very careful that, what are you essentially driving. You can be a lawyer, you can be an IT professional, you can be an assessor, auditor, you can be an IT engineer, you can be IT director, anyone. These two things will revolve essentially around you, right? And that is something which absolutely is phenomenal, of phenomenal importance to everyone. Especially, we do a lot of business, in my personal capacity, I do a lot of business. I am also a board member for a lot of, organizations, and we have seen and we have done a lot of hiring across the geographies, and we realize that in particular, I did some small homework. So in particular, India, and then, if you talk about the whole, Indian and Dutch society, uh, there's a small thing which is very different from what we see in US. Our documentation is pathetic. We are not essentially the best people in the world who write amazing procedures, amazing policies. And in order to stay in the loophole of compliance and ethics, you have to understand that a lot of things goes in black and white, right? So we will talk about those things, when the time permits. But I have some slide which I have put in place, and this slide is essentially my talking points, and these are from a privacy and data protection perspective. That's what I do. That's how I make money, right? So I would like to bring in I mean, everyone on the same page, at least, that you understand what is privacy, why exactly it's talked so much, what has changed in recent 10 years, and then how can you probably relate it with your career. And then if you have any questions, most welcome, right? So let me allow me to share my screen. Hopefully I should be able to share my screen, and share my screen. Okay. Adam, you can just copy me if you see my screen. Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, perfect. So
And sorry to interrupt. You mentioned questions. Towards the second half of the expert lecture, we're going to enable the chat, and all our wonderful students can type their messages there, asking you their questions. And towards the end, we can select a couple that we will give time to address.
Perfect. Sounds good. Sounds good. I think at this stage, it is very important for everyone to to really understand that, and this is slightly off the hook, and probably people take it with a pinch of salt. But then uh, the term career is something which means different things for different people. So you have to be very mindful that when the way Adam's career has progressed is certainly not the way that my career has progressed, right? And the way probably my career has progressed is not certain the way it's going to your career will progress, right? For some of you, it's going to be a steep progress. Some of you, it's going to be lateral movement. Uh, so the idea is, as long as you're making a piece of your mind, you're making right bucks, your family is happy, you're happy. That's the most important thing. Okay, so you don't need to burn your midnight oil on crazy ideas. Somebody's doing phenomenal thing. Okay, I don't get up in the morning to drive a Ferrari. I'm happy with my Camry. That's what I do. So you have to be very careful. What you choose on, right? And this is exactly which is applicable for your career as well. Data protection and privacy is something which is amazing. My intent is, obviously, I'm a salesman. I'm going to sell it to you that you probably pursue it. But having said so, there are chances that it will just give you enough professional orgasm that the idea will stick to you, but it may not become a full-fledged career for you, and that's fine. Okay, so if you don't, it doesn't excites you, it's completely fine. Okay, what you see on the screen is it's some of the elements which are talked in the town right now, and these elements have certainly raised the bar of privacy in the society. Now, for most of you, if you don't know what is privacy, all about, it's a simple thing, right? You want to behave in a certain way when you're alone, right? And your behavior changes when somebody's watching you, right? So the most easiest way to define privacy is the right to be left alone, right? You want to take a shower in your jacuzzi, right? You don't want anyone to shoot you, or make a movie out of you, or you don't want anyone to watch you, right? Simple, right? uh, those of you who are married or you're in a relationship, right? Let's say your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouse, right? They are the most phenomenal people in your life, right? They have seen you, in whatever condition you are, right? But then when you go to take a shower, I mean, you don't want your partner to be there, right? You want your me space, right? That's privacy. Privacy is right to be left alone, as simple as that. What has happened in technology world is somewhere that line is getting blurred, and there's a lot of technology which is peeping on you, and that makes you uncomfortable, right? You go to browser, you do certain browsing, and you don't want Google to be aware of it, what you were searching for, right? As simple as that. Life is not so fair, right? You want your me space, right? You go to a restaurant, you have a fancy dinner, nobody should know, with whom you had the dinner, what did you have, what kind of allergies you have. That's exactly what privacy is all about. Now, it's very interesting that I was talking at World Bank in a recent conference, and we were talking about a term called infodemic, right? So all of you heard of a pandemic as a term. Now there's a new term which is in the top. It's infodemic. What has happened that most of the government, they came up with an apparatus, or they had this funny application or tool. I mean, every government had this tool which was able to track you, that what is your health condition, whether you're corona positive, whether you have some symptoms, where do you go, are you breaking the protocols of quarantine and all those things, right? But nobody realized that over a period of time, all these government agencies, they have phenomenal access to your personal life. They know exactly which is your favorite restaurant, right? They exactly know, what is your typical, weekend cycle, where do you go, right? And how is your health condition? Now the question is, this whole process was enabled for a certain objective, and the objective was public health safety. Now that stuff is done. Luckily, I mean, we are out of it, right? Things are done, right? But then, are we really in the picture where the government has really said, what, hey, I'm okay, the data which we have captured, we're going to dutifully, lawfully go and destroy the data. We don't really care, what you do in your personal life. That's not going to happen. The world is not going to be the same place again, because you have data, you have power. You've heard the term data is new oil, but the latest term is data is nuclear, right? Data is like nuclear weapon. If you want to use it in the right way, it's going to be giving you amazing power. But if you don't know how to use it, it's going to backfire on you, right? So data analytics and learning, intelligent software, intelligent hardware. These are three things which is driving the technology at the core in the modern terms. Look around yourself, including this meeting, including this software, the call, the meeting, everything which you see around, the phone which you have, it's going to be fitting in one of those three things. Either it's going to be fitting in the intelligent software section, or hardware, or eventually we're talking about analytics and learning. I was talking to Richard Fry from BBC, and he was saying that most of the news channel these days, they are data analytics and learning, right? And I said, probably I don't agree. And he explained it to me that look at news channel. What is news channel essentially doing for you, right? They have phenomenal amount of news. They have a lot of people, respondents. They have like, let's say 20,000 news points. They use a software to crunch and see that, okay, hey, which are those 20 news which we should be showing on our channel? It's no longer the game what is important. It's the game what is going to sell like a hot cake, and that's where the term breaking news comes in picture, right? So news around is a phenomenal example of data analytics and learning, right? It's all about. Now, what is the learning part of the news channel? Some of you probably know, you'll be curious. So let's say I have a news channel. I did a news in a particular section for, let's say, 50 days. Let's say I covered sports, geopolitical affairs, let's say Ukraine and everything. I did that, right? Now, after 50 days, me and Adam, we sit on a table and we say, hey, Rick, you know what? Let's plot an Excel sheet and let's see which of these news channel was creating the right buzz. And here I am. I have a trend, and that's learning. That's exactly what is happening, right? When you search for something on Google, Do you think that you're getting something what you're searching? No, it's something which Google wants to show you, right? That's the power of analytics and learning, right? So learning, analytics, intelligent software, intelligent hardware, that's the whole game theory which we have, right? Look at this other side of it, right? Decision making, sensing, and reasoning. These are the actual things for which we want all these three things, right? You want a cell phone. I mean, look at it. Like, you want a cell phone and you want a smartphone. The reason why your smartphone is an example of all three things. Your smartphone has an intelligent hardware, it has amazing software, it is capable of learning and everything. But what is the reason? Why do you need a cell phone? The answer is you need a cell phone simply because you want a better decision making, right? What is communication doing for you? Communication is improving your ability to make better decisions. That's what new challenge is doing for you, right? Let's say, for example, I want to invest in stocks. Should I buy Tesla or not? I will watch a news channel, couple of affairs, and I will say, hey, you know what? I think this is the right time. Let me put my dime in Tesla, and here I am, right? So it's going to be decision making, sensing, and reasoning. Those are the three things which will drive it. But what is really important, which was probably where the meat is, and you will build your career is in the center point. Artificial intelligence, you call it, you call it rose, you call it jasmine, doesn't matter. It's going to smell the same thing. The point is, you will have security and privacy dictating the entire IT space for coming time. To look at IT space, eventually, if you connect the dots, everything is connecting either to security or to the privacy. And if it's not, it will. And the relationship between privacy and security is very simple. If you need privacy, you need to have security. I have a cell phone. Let's say in my cell phone, I have a picture of my girlfriend. I want to protect it from Adam. I will put a password on my phone, right? Which Adam does not know. And that's the way Adam cannot snoop around my phone, right? So if you need privacy, bro, you need security. As simple as that, right? I need to sleep in my bedroom in comfort, in privacy. I need a latch on my door. I need to close my door. I need curtains on my window, right? So if I have to give a statement, privacy and security, they coexist. You can have security without privacy, but you will never have privacy without security. That's the relationship. And this is something which is a phenomenal relationship, because if you're a lawyer, I'm honestly, we have 100 plus people. I don't know what brackets of domain or expertise you come from, but this is a domain which has something for everyone. Either you're from technology, you're from management, you're from hardcore, audit and assessment, finance, doesn't matter. It has something for everyone. I was talking to someone very recently in a privacy congress, and the world now is looking forward to create the financial model of risk management. I mean, those of you who come from risk management, I will give you a paradox which you can solve and which you can make billions of dollars. Right now, as of today, we don't have any risk management model which directly qualifies a risk into financial harm. Look at most of the risk, right? So example, if I ask you that, hey, you know what, you're standing on a traffic signal, let's say the light turns red, and if you decide to cross or jaywalk the road, what will happen? And probably, let's say Adam will say, you know what, hey, Ricky, the chances of you getting hit by a car in a red light is less as compared to something which is in a green light, right? That's a fair assumption. But the moment I ask you that, okay, you know what, can you give me a quantitative number, and can you tell me that how exactly I can quantify this number so that I can talk to my boss and he can give me money for this project, and the light turns off, right? So this is exactly how things turn out, right? This is exactly how things turn out. So you will have to think about it, and then this is exactly this is the framework, which is something which you can take a print screen and to help you. This gives you interaction perspective. This is what we use as interaction perspective. We operate in an environment. We all operate in an environment. You are an individual, and then we are discussing technology, right? So EIT, we call them environment, individual, technology, and these three things interact, right? And this is the classical reason where you'll get the explanation why a particular, and this is probably off the topic, but let's say why exactly different countries decide to have different kind of privacy law or different kind of digital law, as a matter of fact, right? You go to Europe, they follow GDPR, right? And they are bought into GDPR, right? You go to Singapore, they have their own privacy piece. You go to Canada, they have PIPEDA. You go to South Africa, they have POPI. Come to Asian countries, they are contemplating something else. So the biggest factor which people don't understand, that individuals are highly influenced by the culture in which they operate, the religious practices, the racial background, the education level, the economic conditions, right? I mean, in UK, people go as far as saying that, hey, privacy is for elite, and which is true, right? I stand in front of a shopping mall and I say, hey, look, if anyone gives me their, date of birth, name, and cell phone number, I will give you a 5% voucher or a discount voucher for Zara. I bet by the evening I will be a rich man because I will have so much of data. That's how things work. Right? So unless your tummy is full, you will not talk about privacy. Sad but true. Right? So privacy is indeed for elite, but that is an old notion. The reason why we're talking today, with all of you, you have to understand that, in the society, no matter what you will do, whether you will write a piece of code, you will design a software, you will write a legislation, you will design a financial statement, you will have to think about privacy at its core, because what is really happening that we say often that everyone, including myself, everyone is getting digitally naked every day. We're getting more digitally naked in comparison to what you were yesterday. Some wise men, it's a philosophy, but some wise men said once in time that, look at your picture, you will never be young as you were in the picture. And that's true, right? And that's the same philosophy for being digital naked, right? You're more digital naked than yesterday. Simple. By the end of the time, when you will go and he will hit the hay, you will sleep for today, you will realize that, you have exposed yourself more to the digital world. Be it through application use, be it through, use of technology, be it the intervention of technology in your life, the phenomenal, a lot of things, but eventually your environment and you as an individual, they interact. And it's not something new. Environment existed even in Stone Age. Individuals existed in Stone Age. The new element is technology. The technology has intervened in your life and has changed the fabric of your life. So it gives two important things: individual task interaction and technology task interaction. Individual task interaction is something where you say that, hey, you know what, I want to do this thing, and this is what is my objective, and that's your relationship. So for example, some of you probably, look at a simple example. There were people who used to track their health, they used to memorize what is my weight, what is my health condition, how much time I spend in the gym, what kind of food I eat. That was your interaction back in time. But then you decide, hey, no, look, there's a task which is to monitor my eating behavior or how much I work out. Is there a technology available which can make my life easier? And you decide to install a funny
Rakesh, are you able to hear us?
I don't know. I think something happened probably. Yeah. So look. Let me share my screen. I think.
Oh, okay. It works now.
I don't know. I can hear everyone. Okay, let me share it again.
We can hear you now, sir.
This is what technology is. Okay. Okay. Perfect. So your interaction with human beings. Look at our stuff. Like what do we do? I mean, eventually everything which you do is a transaction. If I have to put it in a simple word, everything which you do is a transaction, right? And the transaction is something which you try to do at a transaction level, right? Now, when you do a transaction, these transactions are something which are eventually a relationship between you and the task, right? And then at some point of time, you introduce a technology, and technology wants to help you with automating this task at a different level. And these two things bring in certain element of surprises, right? So as an individual, right, I used to cook my food, and I used to, obviously, I used to cook my food at my home, right? But now I think maybe I'm lazy, or maybe because I have means. I decided to install a technology or install an application on my phone which will allow me to, let's say, procure food through a particular application. Now, do you realize that there's someone who's now has the intel or has the information about you, that what is your food behavior, right? What kind of allergies, food allergies, let's say, you have, and probably, let's say, how much do you eat over a period of time? By looking at your your behavior at a food application, I can exactly tell you that, okay, what are the health conditions probably which will affect you, right? And this is what exactly is bothering a lot of people in privacy world, that the technology has really seeped down into everyone's society, and we need to be very careful that do we really want to balance. I mean, so for many years, if I have to put it in simple words, for many years, uh, nobody actually realized that how much technology they want in their life, right? So there was an open door policy. I mean, all of you on this forum will agree that when did someone, I mean, it may sound very stupid, but I mean, trust me, mark my words, it's going to be true in coming years. It will happen in 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. But within our lifetime, you will see that every family probably will do some type of cost benefit analysis or risk assessment before they want to introduce a new technology, right? We have phenomenal buying power, and there's a technology available. We decide to buy it, right? As simple as that. I mean, all of you probably you'll upgrade your iPhone 13 to a 14, or or let's say you'll buy a new MacBook, or you'll do something amazing, or you'll buy a new car. But the question is, do you realize that in that upgradation, the technology has upgraded, but has your use case, right? Has your individual environment interaction really improved? Or it has, I mean, is it really requiring a new technology? Number one. And with this new technology, what kind of risk do you have? There was a time, back in time, in all the data centers when we used to go for audit, people were a bit skeptical when, because just for the Bond movies, in the James Bond movies, we used to see those funny systems, or maybe in MIB movies, where probably you will go and you'll say, hey, what, somebody is using biometric, they have retina scans and things were working, doors were opening because of those biometric things. But these things are reality now, right? And when I go to a lot of offices, they have this amazing data center, and they say, Ricky, we have multi-factor authentication. So multi-factor authentication for many of you is a way to access something with more than one access point. So for example, I mean, all of you, when you use a banking, you type in your password and then it sends you OTP, right? So that's multi-factor authentication. So you're using two-factor to authenticate yourself, right? So similarly, in offices, a lot of places, now they're using, I have an access card, and then I will have to type my, let's say punch in my biometric to get me access to the data center. Now, it looks amazing. I mean, is it, right? But then nobody realizes something, and this is something where I'll rest my case on this point, that let's say, and sorry, because I know that Adam is here and Harshit is there, so I can take their names. But let's say me and Adam, we both started using credit card, and for whatever reason, one fine day, somebody misused the credit card. Adam's credit card, right? And he says, Henrik, you know what? I will stop using credit card going forward. I don't want to use credit card. I'm done with it. Right? And the reason why, because obviously somebody misused the credit card as an instrument, right? Somebody probably stole his password, or somebody stole his credit card details and whatever. After 15 years, let's say I come back to Adam and say, hey, Adam, you know what? I assure you, man, that the technology has evolved. You have phenomenal cards. Nobody can cheat you. We have multi-factor authentication, whatnot. Start using it again, right? And the chances are, let's say one in 10, but the chances are that he may pursue using credit card again. But think about your biometric information, right? Let's say a data breach happens and somebody mishandled your, let's say there's a major breach in your passport organization, the passport office, or the passport ministry, and citizens' passport information, which includes their biometric information, is compromised. Now look at the odds, right? Once you lose your thumbprint, right, it's gone forever. You're not going to regenerate this thumbprint within this life, right? The only way you can get this new thumbprint is getting a new life. If you believe in reincarnation, right? When you get a new life, you get a new thumbprint. And that's where the odds are. That at one side, we're using some modern technology to, give ourselves a kick out of life, that, okay, we're using phenomenal things. It's the movie stuff is getting it's turning into reality. But then you also have to think that, okay, What are the risks of it, right? And this is exactly, probably I forgot the name of it, probably I think Madam, if you know the name, I think Face App, right? If I remember the name, the app was Face App, which was something which was capable to give you a picture that how will you look when you will get old, right? That was the app, I guess. Face App was a classical example. I mean, though it was an app which was Ukrainian app and Russian app, but then it was a classical example. People decided to use this app, and I think everyone, celebrities, a lot of people, legislators, technology people, they use this app, and without realizing the fact that there was two major problems. The app was scanning your facial coordinates, and the algorithm was the algorithm which was used in doing so is the same algorithm through which your phone gets unlocked by looking at your facial ID, right? That's the same ID which Microsoft uses for giving you multi-factor authentication. And the second biggest problem was that the privacy notice of this app clearly stated that once you give me these data points, it is my data point and I perpetually own it forever. You don't have any claim on it. Right? Which means, red flag, for those of you who have used this app, you should not be using your face as an ID for unlocking or locking anything. Because there's someone who has a database which already contains your facial ID, and boom, with one click, he can access it, if you're using a facial ID. So this is where the technology adoption is something which has to be good. We are talking right now, but I think this is something which also has to be taught at a school level. That probably a student, a professor, a teacher, a school, everyone, they should understand that what is, and I think this is true for everyone, not only for major giants. I always say this thing. Organizations are made of people. So CISO or CTO or CFO is not someone who's or CEO is not someone who's making a conscious decision on technology adoption. They are just sitting there and they get the idea and notion of adopting something. But eventually, deep down, they're all human beings. Tell me how hard it would be for a CEO if he or she is not convinced by a technology, and then probably he or she will approve buying it. The chances are very bleak unless there's a gun on your head situation. You will never buy something through which you're not motivated or excited, right? So technology adoption is a phenomenal thing, and which all of you should understand. And there are multiple lenses. I'm just reiterating it. There are multiple lenses I looking at these things. We are just discussing security and privacy. You can also look at other lenses through which you can see that should be how exactly and to what extent you should adopt the technology. This is something which I was also talking to a lot of academy and education people back in pandemic. That yes, I understand that there are technologies which are available which will enable you for remote study, learning, amazing thing. But my question to everyone is that and this is maybe my personal question, but then this is the way I think, that is online or virtual learning a real substitute to classroom training, and what are the odds, right? And forget about the hypothetical, societal, and all those exemplary cliche questions. I'm just saying that from a technology perspective, is it really something nice? Do you really want to sit in the front of camera and this stuff being recorded and your digital footprint staying in some server forever? For what? Something which for which we have been we had a better system where we can walk in and we can do a learning one-to-one. Those are the questions which really is something which has to be thought through. And I believe that all of you are wonderful people, probably will pay attention to it. So I just wanted to spend some time here. I know that we have a time restriction, but look at the other side of it, right? What some of you probably, when you will get into this profession, and you will realize that these are some of the challenges which you have. And I'm talking from big data perspective. Honestly, I don't know how many of you work on big data, but look at the big data, the perspective of big data, or the biggest challenges of big data. There are 5 V's, but 3 V's are something which are very important: the velocity, variety, and volume, right? So what is the biggest problem, and what is the biggest problem with big data? The biggest problem right now is the variety, right? I can prove it. So let's say, pick up your cell phone, right? Compare your cell phone, which you used to have 5 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, and 10 years ago, and versus what we have right now. Or compare your cell phone. Sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me, sorry for disturbing you, sir. I think there is some issue with the audio. Can you just try to switch off your camera and we'll check if the audio improves, if there's some network issue? A bit louder.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it can. It's a possibility, right? Okay. Is it better audible now?
Yeah, the audience was saying it is a bit low. I think that is why I asked you. They had a few,
Okay. Okay.
in the chat
So
box.
it's for them. It's for them. So if their point is valid, it's for them. If they think it, that's perfect. So okay. So do remind me if you have any questions. I think do type in the chat. If you have any questions, if you missed on something, I would love to answer it. Right. But essentially, what I'm trying to make as a point is that if you look at big data, the big problem of big data is the three V's which we follow: the volume, velocity, and variety. And if you look at the industry right now, every industry is struggling with those three things. And I was giving an example of your cell phone. Uh, Look at your cell phone right now. Look at your computers or laptops which you have. You will find those three things pertinently a problem there, right? Uh, Back in time, 5 years ago, or when comparatively we were all young, right? Uh, our cell phone was not something which was really a dumping ground, and I use the term dumping ground. It was not really a dumping ground where you will dump a lot of things. But in your cell phone right now, you have abnormal amount of data, exuberant amount of information, and these information they come from different variety. You will have information about, you will have a copy of your passport, driving license, you will have your corona report, you will have a ticket, you will have your photo of family, you will have photo of your spouses, you will have chats, you will have emails, you will have your health information, you'll have your banking information. I mean, look at your phone. Your phone is a magnum opus, right? It contains everything. So variety of information or variety of data clearly is a problem. Volume, the amount, right? Everyone is greedy. We want a bigger cell phone. We want 128 gigabytes. We want 512 gigabytes. So the volume is certainly a problem, right? Volume itself is a big problem. How many of you actually now use hard drives? How many of you use pen drives? No, we don't realize that, but slowly and gradually, the whole notion of pen drive and hard drive is washing away. In another couple of years, you will realize that nobody's using pen drive, and which is true. And then at the same time, when you think of pen drive, they think that like a phenomenon which happened just yesterday, right? So just yesterday, pen drive was a big phenomenon, and right now it's getting obsolete. The same thing is happening with your hard drives because the world is moving now to clouds, right? The world is moving to the clouds. So if you think of this velocity, volume, and variety as a problem, velocity basically talks about how quickly the information is coming to you, right? So in a day, right? In a day, you receive so many forward text, SMSs, emails, a lot of things. Within a day, you consume so much of data, and it gets stacked somewhere in your devices, in your memory, in some equipments. The same thing happens with a lot of organizations. So velocity, volume, and variety is clearly a big problem. It's an amazing problem, and it has resulted into a lot of technology. So this is where if you remember the previous slide, right? This is where the things comes in picture, right? So my environment, right? My environment right now is cloud, and at some point of time, cloud was a technology. Right? So look at the shift which is also happening there. At some point of time, internet was just a technology. But did you realize that internet is now an environment which you operate, right? So you cannot say that, okay, I as an individual, I'm operating in an environment, right? And that's something which I am not privy to. So things will change over a period of time, and this is something which you have to keep in mind. So these are some of the problems which you will see, that lack of anonymization, right? A lot of times we want to give data because we have to, but is the system smart enough to make sure that, okay, they anonymize my identity, right? E-discovery concerns, right? If somebody really wants to search me, they can search me, right? I'm electronically discoverable, right? You go and type my name, you will see at least 15 photographs, which if you ask me, I want to remove them from internet, but it's there, right? So discovery concerns. Insufficient analytics, right? So at even though we have a lot of data, but then these data are not resulting into true information or often misleading information, right? And this is something where you have to also understand that uh, uh, the classical example would be Singapore, because Singapore came up with this new law that, okay, if someone is found propagating or supporting fake news, they will be penalized and punished, and which is an amazing law. I'm a big supporter of that. I think the world really needs that, right? And the reason why, because people are relying, as I mentioned a couple of minutes back, that news channels and people are relying on analytics to find the truth and not just the truth, right? And that's a problem. Human beings are capable of amazing capabilities, right? The reason why we are superior than a machine is because we have two amazing power. The power to form opinion. Machines cannot form opinion, right? And the power to find a trend. Machines can find a trend. That's where machines are just half of our true potential. But insufficient analytics in any form is a big problem, and that's a problem with the scattered data, or as we call unstructured data, right? Even though you have so much of data, but what's the point if data is not centralized, right? Improper data masking is just an example that, okay, even a lot of time, let's say a lot of time, you have to show something to someone, right? Let's say you have to show a medical report to someone in your office for a medical leave, right? But does the person, let's say your superior or boss or HR department, I mean, do they really have a business in looking at everything which is written in the medical report? So that's just a lame example, right? But data masking is a big thing, which is a growing challenge in the industry. That yes, we have a lot of data, and the same file will go to multiple people. So don't you think that multiple people should have multiple masking options? They should be able to see what they should be privy to, right? Irrelevant patent copyrights, that's, we'll park it for a while. Unethical actions, right? Secondary uses. Unethical actions is secondary uses. I gave you my data for something and you decided to use it for something completely else, right? That's a big problem, right? I gave you my data that, hey, you know what? Let's say I send my kids to a school and I give my data that, okay, this is my phone number in case of emergency, call me, yeah, and this is where I work. And then the school decides to sell this entire parent information to a completely different company, and they start calling me and say, hey, you know what, Ricky, do you want to buy a new car, or do you want a new property, or do you want to invest into new bond? That's completely secondary use, and that's a big problem. And world is not an ethical place. Privacy was, and this is where I started my topic of the day, that the whole notion of security and privacy was a point of ethics. But slowly and gradually, we all know we are not a great specimen of human being. We don't do things nicely. So somebody had to intervene, and the regulator decided, hey, look, you're not putting the acts in order. I will have to create a law, and that's the reason we have a law now. Otherwise, I just touch and come out of this topic, but then look at all the religious scripture, look at the historical books, look at the mythological philosophy. Everything has one thing in common. They always say respect the privacy, right? In some way or the other, right? In some context they talk about neighbor, in some context they talk about something else, but they always talk about respecting the privacy and individuality. That's the most important thing. Privacy also has an element, individuality, right? We have to maintain our individuality. I am who I am, right? And for that, I need my right to privacy. But then, over a period of time, people stopped using that, and this is where law came into picture and said, look, if you don't do it, we're going to punish you, right? That's how GDPR came into picture. Law to protect your data protection. Discrimination, right? With big data, the problem is discrimination. I mean, one of the biggest things which we talk in a lot of forums about AI and ML, which is a hot topic these days, is how do you enable AI ML that they should not be, they should not land up in discrimination-based system. You design a machine, you use machine learning, you design an amazing AI, but then if for whatever reason, vested or not vested, if you decide to feed your machine learning with a lot of biased data, right? Let's say I'm designing a robot which will replace a surgeon whose expertise is to perform surgery, right? But for whatever reason, I decided to feed only data from male patients to this particular robot, right? And oh God, in someday, this robot has to perform a surgery on a female, and let's say she has to be operated for a child birth, right? And here I am. The machine says, you know what? This is completely out of the syllabus thing for me, right? I never knew that, okay, there's a female anatomy which is different from male anatomy, right? So the problem with machine learning and AI and especially with big data is that somebody has to create data which is unbiased, normalized, as we call it in statistic world. It has to be normalized data. It has to be unbiased, and the data has to be there in a way the data makes sense for larger objective. It should not be, you should not be creating a software or system which should be, participating in discrimination based on religion, race, gender, anything, as a matter of fact, right? I don't know how many of you know, but there was an incident in one of the airports. I will not name the country, but there was an incident in the, in one of the airports where they decided to put a camera for immigration, for visa, e-gates, right? And based on your facial color, the color of the skin tone of your, the thing, they started putting certain people into certain brackets, for a recheck, and their luggage was being detained and all those things. That's obviously, that's very uncomfortable, and that's very disheartening, right? And last but not the least on the list is a privacy breach, right? No matter what we do, bad things will happen, right? Nothing is foolproof. 100% security is myth. This world is not a fair place. Things will happen. People will, break their promises. People will break laws. And in that scenario, how ready you are, to deal with the situation. Now, I may sound very sadistic. I always say to all my colleagues who are into forensics, I say that, what, people in forensics, they take a sadistic pleasure in they wait for something bad to happen, right? And that's the way that's a funny joke, that's a pun intended, right? But that's the way I say that. Okay, they take a lot of pride in finding something when bad thing happens, right? So bad things will happen, right? And probably some of you will probably design your career or your ability to be there, right? Industry needs a lot of people who can work on forensics and privacy breach, or they can prevent them, right? And the world is, the world is there. You want to build a career, it's there, right? So if you look at the screen, there are a lot of things which are available for you, right? And you can certainly choose. I mean, we do have a lot of things, but then I will just stop here, and I will take some questions. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the lecture, sir. Now, I see that in the chat, we already received a bunch of great questions from our students. We should probably go in chronological order. I can read them out for you, sir, and we can go one by one. So Krish Shah is asking the question, can e-waste be also a part of data breach, as there are some tools/software in the market that tries to recover deleted data from a camera, phone, or laptops?
Yes, so I think the question is from Krish, right? I will just open the chat from. Okay, so e-waste be also be part of data breach. Yes, definitely. I think I don't know if you probably follow the news, but the most recent incident, it was from USA. There was a company, there was a big company. They basically they gave all their old hard drives to a particular vendor, right? And the idea was that they will just go and recycle it as per the norms, which they didn't, right? And which basically meant that there was a lot of data, financial data and health data, which was available to a lot of people. So the way I will just just reframe the statement for you so that it's easy for everyone. There's something called data life cycle. All of you need to understand there is something called data life cycle, and data life cycle means right from the time when you collect it till the time you destroy it, right? And destruction has many elements, which simply means that you have to do destruction of data on all three layers. This is where you have to take a mental note. The data has three states. The way we have, liquid, gas, and solid for, matter. Similarly, the data has three states. You have data in transit, data at rest, and data in motion, right? And when you say I do a data life cycle, I have to ensure that my data life cycle syncs with any of those three states. So for instance, you made a wonderful application, let's say, and this is by no way endorsement, but I'm saying, let's say you made Twitter. That's the news of the town, right? So let's say you made a Twitter, right? And Twitter is a phenomenal application which you made, and you said, okay, I'm responsible for giving data protection in transit, which means the time while I'm typing my tweet and it's going to the server, when it actually gets posted, I should be responsible to provide security, right? That's something which is happening in transit, right? It's within the movement. Now, transit typically means when things move from one technology to another. You're writing an email. When you hit send, the email goes to an email server, Exchange server. From the Exchange server, it will go to internet. That's something called transit, right? But then the email actually comes from your machine to my machine through a series of IP. That's motion. The data is in motion. It can be intercepted, right? And then eventually you're storing your email, let's say in your PST or in a server in somewhere, like you're storing some email, right? The same thing happens with your photographs, your posts, your tweets, everything. So e-waste is a classical example where you're not taking care of your data in rest, right? So basically, your hard drive, your machines, they are a perfect example or a venue of data in rest, and somebody did not consider e-waste, from that perspective. Uh, to give you an industrial perspective, how exactly we do in professional world, there's something called hardware sanitization, right? So there are two kinds of sanitization. The moment you buy a equipment from a seller, let's say I bought a new hard drive from Dell, I will sanitize it to completely remove the factory defaults, number one. At the same time, when I'm trying to discard my hard drive, I will again do a factory sanitization. I will wipe everything. Again, it depends how badly you want to wipe it. You want to drill holes in the hard drive. You want to degauss it. You want to throw it in the ocean. It's up to you, right? But then you're just eliminating the chances of removing it, right? And Adam, it's okay, and I can read it, Adam. So it says, I have two questions related to the previous lecture.
Oh, yes, Siddhartha, I can pass them on to Arthur. No trouble. Just shoot me an email.
This next question is from Anish, that how dangerous are smart watches from privacy point of view? I mean, Anish, I keep a gun on the table and ask you that, okay, how dangerous is the gun, right? The gun itself is not dangerous, right? It's not going to do anything, right? Unless you have someone who's going to operate it, right? That's the dark side of technology. The element of good and bad and surprises will always be the technology. Smart watches are phenomenal device. They are designed for you. They're designed to give you the comfort and ease of life. The problem is with the use cases, right? And the problem is that how desperate and greedy at times this technology player becomes, right? So I can quote I mean, it's in public domain, but the Fitbit is a classical example. Fitbit, when it initially got launched, right, Fitbit did an amazing thing. Fitbit, so when everyone, we are all desperate, right, to use a new gadget. So we always hit next, accept, right? Nobody bothers to read what's there in the fine prints, right? Uh, what Fitbit did phenomenally, Fitbit, sort of, tricked you to get your permission. And then Fitbit sold a lot of information to an insurance company in a certain geography, right? And after using Fitbit for 5 days, 10 days, or 15 days, based on your health condition, your fitness, how hard you hit the gym, they started calling you that, hey, you know what? We think, Adam, you're gonna have a massive heart attack. You should buy our insurance plan. And Adam was like, petrified. I don't know, how do you know about it, right? And here's a secret. So smartwatches are indeed, something which has to be looked into in a way that, okay, do you really need it? Uh, it may upset some of you, but reality is, out of many friends in my circle, at least, if I have 10 friends who uses smartwatches, I think most of them, right, probably 70% of them, they're just using it because they can afford it, right? It's more of a, I mean, the moment you have an iWatch on your wrist, it looks cool, right? Uh, it's not something which they're using time and again for tracking their health, fitness, or how good bad their cholesterol level is, right? So you have to kind of dig into that. So there's no right or wrong answer, but yes, they are dangerous. If that's the question, they are dangerous. But yes, it depends on the use case, not on the technology itself. Okay? Uh, Taha, do you think society we need to halt integration of technology into every aspect? Uh, Taha, I think one of the best things to probably read on this topic will be VSD, value sensitive designing. Okay, it's an amazing topic which probably it alludes around your point. The whole point of value sensitive design is that uh, there's a value system in society, and every time you bring automation or technology, the idea is it should not contradict with the value system. That's the whole point, right? Tinder decides to, this is a funny example, but let's say Tinder decides to launch an application in one certain geography, and if they are not respectable to the point that the whole notion of relationship in a specific culture, because of religious ethnicity and everything, is very different, it's not going to work, then there's a problem, right? So the way you do swipe left or right, and you decide that okay, hey, you know what, he or she is my friend, that may not be true for a lot of geographies and a lot of cultures, right? So you have to think of value system, that what value system you're trying to target, and then you have to talk about sensitivity level. Look at India as an example. Matrimonial sites work amazing in India, right? It's couple of I've been part of a couple of investigation, right? I remember there was a particular big large player matrimonial site, and they said, hey, you know what? Adam is listed on. I don't know why I'm picking up an Adam, but let's say Adam is listed on matrimonial site. He's the most eligible bachelor, right? But then we're getting a lot of questions from all the prospect suitors. They're saying, hey, how much is Adam's salary? Because before I decide to fix a date, I would love to know what kind of money he's making, right? How thick is his wallet? And that's where this matrimonial site, they came up with a very funny idea. They said, hey, look, why don't we open parallelly a recruitment company, right? And I will pretend to be a recruiter, and I will call Adam, and hey, I'll say, Adam, we have a job opening, but you have to answer some questions. What is your current CTC? And based on that, we can negotiate what is your future CTC, right? Here I am. Now I have information about where do you work, how much you draw, right? How much you are willing to pay as taxes, and then I can mix it with my matrimonial side, and I have a complete profile. So the odds of integrating something is amazing, right? And so do you want to really go on that layer? That's something which has to be deliberated. So I don't know, Taha, sorry if I answered your question, but yes, value sensitive design, VSD, do read about it. It's a phenomenal thing. I have a couple of white papers. If you want, I can certainly share with everyone. Okay. We have a question from Hannah. Is your opinion on Indian government's recent changes to VPN regulations? Is there any way truly diverse? Well, uh, every time you see the G word, I'm a bit skeptical, because I'm still under a lot of NDAs. But yes, if I have to give you an answer, there are certain red flags. There are certain red flags on that. The whole purpose of VPN is to give you a level of privacy, but then there are situations where your privacy should not be a barrier to national security, right? It's the same way, it's the same rationale. Let's say, the law gives me a right of privacy, but tomorrow if law enforcement comes to search my home because they suspect that I'm indulging some anti-national activity, I should not be crying my play card with saying, hey, I have privacy, you can't search my house, right? So there has to be a limit. So yes, there's certain reservations, I would say, and I can sense that thing in your question. So there are certain problems, but to a large extent, it has to be balanced against national security. Uh, that's the whole point. For many years, VPN, and that's not true for India. But I think probably, Adam, you will agree to it. For many countries, that VPN is not something which was regulated thing, right? VPN was just a practice. Nobody thought of regulating it, but now most of the countries, they're trying to regulate VPN because they want to really know what are you trying to hide, because that's the old school theory, right? And the moment you say, hey, you know what, I want privacy, I mean, go and ask your dad that, okay, I need privacy. The first question he will ask that, okay, what is there to hide, right? So the whole notion is that if you need privacy, there's something fishy, right? So if you're using VPN, the government thinks that, okay, something is a problem, right? There's a particular kind of site which is blocked, right? And you're trying to bypass it through VPN. That is something a challenge, right? So yes. We have another question from Tapan. Thank you. Welcome. So you have encountered any instance in your GRC career where implementing a security framework, compliance checklist, contradicts and risk? Absolutely, right. Most of my work is, I think I always call them that, okay, if you are a regulatory consultant, your biggest job is to remove what we call regulatory friction, right? So as simple as that, let's say you're operating, you're doing a business in Netherlands, right? And let's say you have GDPR applicable to you, and then you say, you know what, I'm also operating in Singapore, and you have Singapore law also applicable to you. How do you find a midway, right? And let's say you have a taxation compliance which says, hey, Adam, keep the data for 45 years, right? And then you have another compliance which says you need to keep data for 20 years. So whom should I listen to, right? So there are a lot of frictions there. In fact, you use the term GRC. So for a lot of people, GRC is governance, risk, and compliance. It's a fancy word of saying that, okay, if under one hood, under one umbrella, if I have to manage everything, how should I go and do it, right? So what is governance for everyone? And I think this is something which will help a lot of people. What is governance? Governance is who does what by when. Always remember that, my friend. Who does what by when is governance, right? Simple, right? Plain and vanilla. What is governance? Who does what by when? And if you have that thing in order, your governance is in place. What is risk? Anything which can possibly impact you negatively or positively, right? That's risk, right? And what is compliance? There are certain things which is absolutely you have to do it. There's no exception, and that's compliance, right? So it's the other way around. Even though you write it in as GRC, but when you implement it, it's CRG. You first create compliance because when you don't have a control. So example, let's say we open a business, all of us 100 plus people, we open a fantastic company, right? And then we decide to open this company in a particular country. The law of land will dictate the compliance. I don't have any say on that, right? It's a law of the land. So the compliance is something which is external. And then internally, I will create some policies which will become my compliance. Now I will do assessment. I will say, hey, Adam, let's do one thing. Let's try to figure out that based on what is needed from from the government, how good, bad, ugly we are. And there's a situation we may comply with a lot of things and we may not comply with a lot of things. Based on what we comply or we may not comply, it will give us a risk posture. And the required compliance, the current risk will allow me to create a governance structure. So for instance, if I know that the regulatory requirement is very high and I'm not ready for it, I will have to build a strong governance. I will have to do a lot of spoon feeding to my people. I will have to make some strict policy that my employees are behaving in a certain way. So GRC is actually CRG, okay? Just remember that, okay? Okay. Trying their hand drives low. What do they? Okay, so Rohini, I think just elimination point for everyone. There are 138 plus data protection legislation across the globe right now, and there are almost 17 of them which are in progress. In fact, God was kind to me. 23 of them were written by me. So I can tell you one thing for sure, that you will never find a privacy law. You can bet my, I mean, exceptions. I mean, foolish countries will probably come up with it, but you will never find a privacy law. All you will find is data protection legislation. You know why? Because privacy is very subjective. Even the smartest way of defining privacy is a state of mind, number one, and privacy is right to be left alone, which can clearly mean different things for different people, right? I'm sure one of your friend will be comfortable putting his or her naked picture on some social platform, and the other person will have a lot of objection on that, right? I may go to Brazil and I will post myself in a bikini, but someone else will have big problem, wearing a skirt, right? So this is completely individual thing, right? I mean, look at all of you. All of you use WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn. How many of you actually have your profile pictures on your or a display picture on your LinkedIn profile or on your WhatsApp profile? I'm sure a lot of you will not have those things, right? The reason why, it's your state of mind, and nobody can challenge your state of mind. It's you who decide how much privacy you want, how much you're willing to trade off. As simple as that. You have 5 cousins, 5 friends, different partners, different girlfriends, or a number of people in your life, but they don't know exactly same thing about you. All of them, they know different thing about you based on the comfort which you have. So privacy is essentially of 4 types. There's something called bodily privacy, the privacy which you need for body; territorial privacy, information privacy, and communication privacy. Now, across the globe, people have realized that there's no way you can regulate all 4 privacy in the same way in a law. So let's not do that. Rather than that, let's find a common ground, and that's personal data, and let's try to protect it. GDPR is General Data Protection Regulation. Okay. Similarly, UK Data Protection Act, Singapore Personal Data Protection Law. I mean, you can Google it. You will never. I mean, the chances are you will never find a private. I mean, CCPA's Consumer Privacy Act. That's the only odd man out. But even that talks about personal data. So everyone is talking about privacy in context of data privacy, data protection. The larger part of your question is, yes, all privacy law, 139 plus, they're all privacy principle based law. So if I have to give you a quick history, someone in 1974 came up with a document was called FIPS, Fair Information Processing Practices. These were like 7 or 5 principles. In 1980, OCR, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, They picked up this document. They made a guideline in 1981. European institutions picked it up as a convention 108. It became directive in 1995. It became GDPR. You pick up any law, all law talks about all same 7 points. So if you understand one privacy law, you can work anywhere. The only thing which will change is that, okay, yes, Adam will say, I will give you a punishment of $5 million, and I will say, no, I will give you a punishment of $2 million, right? So that's the only thing which will change. The fine, the sanctions, the duration of reporting certain thing, the administrative obligations is going to change. Rest everything will be same. Okay, so we are the same. Okay, no problem. Another question is, okay, on the scan surveillance by states by own content. What is your perspective? Okay, so quick. I mean, I think we have time restriction, but the quick thing, Sidra. Okay, sorry, Sidra. So Sidra, the quick point is that you have to, you have to be very smart to distinguish between two important things: surveillance versus monitoring. Okay, so when you do surveillance, surveillance is time bound and specific to a certain geography. When you do monitoring, monitoring is dynamic in nature. So you have to really understand that governments will do surveillance because they need it for a variety of reasons. The problem is the government should not indulge in monitoring, because if government is monitoring your behavior or monitoring your movement or monitoring whatever financial habits or travel thing, then there's a problem. So my take on it, that I always, because I do write a lot of provisions and laws in these directions, so I always say that as long as you're doing surveillance, I'm completely fine with it. Surveillance is I mean, surveillance has a geography and end, right? But when I do monitoring, that's where I get greedy. So a greedy surveillance is called monitoring. So don't get into monitoring. Surveillance should be fine. There should not be problem. Again, this answer will change in a couple of months, but as of today, surveillance is acceptable. Monitoring is a problem. Okay. Okay. Do we have?
Sir, you were already really, really generous with your time, and thank you for that. Do you think we have room for two more questions?
I can. I think if it helps, certainly let's pick two more questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think the question is from Mowgli. Since the data is generated on day-to-day basis, which yes, what are the privacy laws to control the same? Well, okay, it's the same. I mean, this is the same analogy which I give for people who do exercise, right? You exercise and you sweat, right? I mean, you cannot control the sweat part, right? I mean, what happens post that, that's something which you will have to find out a way. So data generation, unfortunately, and that's a I mean, that's a smart way of thinking of it, because even in privacy world, we do think, we ponder on a lot of points. For example, we talk about data minimization, right? Data minimization is a principle which says, hey, try to collect as less as possible, which will serve your job. So let's say me and Adam become best friends, and I say, hey Adam, I think one of the things which we will do is I will wish you, happy birthday, or I'll wish you anniversary every year. So why don't I get your date of birth, right? I mean, that makes sense, because that's the only way I can wish him. This is where if you apply data minimization, Adam will come and say, okay, Ricky, I will give you my month and I will give you my day, but you don't need the year, right? So that technically I don't have an ability to determine your age, right? And since I know your name, I don't have your complete date of birth, so I cannot probably do something in your banking world, right? So that's data minimization. Data minimization will tell you that, okay, what is the minimum value of data which you need? So in a way, yes, not generated. If you allow me to take a liberty, if I just replace the word generated with the word collected. So data is being collected. Data is not generated. Data is being collected in certain way. Most of you have, so example, your name, your IP addresses, your phone number, your date of birth. They already exist, right? All I'm doing is collection. So yes, when I collect it, I should be smart enough to use data minimization. That, okay, do I really need the data, or am I getting greedy? So that's something which you have to keep in mind. Can you also settle debate Tor versus? So Aman, Tor versus VPN. So Tor is something which is obviously a debatable topic. Probably someday, God willing, we'll talk about it. But yes, when we talk about dark web, the law of land and lot of things does not really apply to those things. So Tor is something which is because we are talking something which is in context of regulation. So Tor is something which will go beyond that. So my apologies, but God willing, someday we'll talk about it when we'll talk about dark web, indeed. I missed to hear you are talking about two things that are IT engineer that really super. So okay. So Murugapan, I think my point probably, if I remember, my point was that whatever we are trying to discuss here is something which has to offer to everyone. So whether you're an IT engineer, whether you are an auditor, whether you're a lawyer, or you're from HR, or you're from administrative role, uh, data security and privacy is something which has to offer something as a role for everyone, right? So that's what my point was, that okay, if you really like this concept, this is something which will help you to build your career irrespective of your current stream of operations or work. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important would you say it is actually to read through the entire privacy? Okay, so yes, a couple, I think a point for everyone. Remember, it's something which is happening. It's a malpractice which is happening for many years in the world. But what you see on the websites or what you see in applications, they are not privacy policy. They are officially called privacy statement or a privacy notice. Privacy policy, by definition, policy is an internal document, right? So if I have to give an example, let's say I go to Adam and I say, hey, Adam, why don't you come to my home this weekend? I will serve you some good, fantastic, drinks, and we will make some good, amazing food for you. We'll have some nice movie and we'll have some good conversation, right? And Adam says, yes, sounds like a good plan. And then Adam turns up to my home on the weekend, and when he comes back to my home, I say, you know what? Okay, what do you want to eat? Let me order the food for you. And Adam gets super pissed off and disappointed. He says, look, all the reason I came here, I thought you were going to cook something and you will have some nice time, and you're ordering the food from a restaurant, which I could have done at my place, right? So the point is, the relationship between privacy policy and privacy notice is very simple. When you go to a website of Facebook, let's say, for example, on the Facebook, you will find something called privacy statement or a notice, which will tell me what will Facebook do with my data, right? That's the commitment which Facebook is making to you as a customer. And then internally, Facebook needs to tell their employee that, look, this is what I have committed to the people. This is how you need to obey it, right? So in my example, when I tell Adam that, okay, Adam, I will serve you some fantastic food and drinks, I should come back and I tell my wife that, hey, I'm expecting my friend on weekend, and this is the thing which I promised. You better get things in order, right? That's the relationship between privacy policy and notice. So what you see on the website is a privacy statement or notice. Now, do you want to really go through it? Uh, Depends what kind of business, depend what kind of business operations you are into. So, example, if you're into healthcare, I would definitely like you and encourage you to go through it. If you are dealing with financial systems, yes, definitely. If you're not dealing with a lot of other things, and by the way, things like GDPR and everything have changed this thing. They're moving to a world where they're saying that, okay, you don't have to really read these paper. You should have icons and badges which will tell you that, okay, this is privacy compliant. So things will change. If you do read about something called just-in-time notice, right? So example, if when you use Uber, the moment you open the Uber says, okay, I need your GPS location, right? You could have easily read that statement in their privacy statement, right? But then it says, okay, I need your GPS location. That's an example of just-in-time notice. Okay, so that's the future. That's the future. That okay, whenever they will collect data, they will inform you, right? It's example when you go to shopping mall, it says you are under CCTV surveillance. Basically, don't kiss your girlfriend, right? So that's something which they have put in place for everyone. So you have to get your acts in order. And that's an example of just-in-time notice. I think you have so many questions now.
I think, yeah. So, sir, I think one last question you can take. So, I think it's from Yochana. She just asked, what is the most secure data among transit, motion, and rest?
See, the the answer of it is not really a technical, but it's a commercial answer. It's a commercial answer. The problem is that with the current technological advancement and setup, uh, the so for example, let's say Yochana, pick up encryption as an example, right? Now, if I say that encryption is the solution through which you will try to protect the data, right? Now, can you encrypt data in transit, motion, and rest? The answer is yes, right? Now, will you encrypt the data in transit, motion, and rest? The answer is no. And the answer is very simple, right? Let's say we built an application, we deal with APIs, we deal with integrations, we deal with a lot of movements. and you don't want to encrypt something which is encrypted in your system, and it becomes useless when it goes to the other system, right? So encryption becomes a very costly affair in motion in transit, and this is the reason encryption is, or let's say the security of data is primarily still till date very focused to the rest point, right? I can give you another very classical point to it, and which will probably some of you will probably find it interesting. That if you look at the whole world right now, I mean, most of the countries, they're gaga about the concept of data localization. They're forcing everyone, hey, you know what? Keep my citizens' data in my country, right? That's the notion which is happening, right? Data localization, and that the data localization is based on this your question. That people think that, okay, yes, if data is at rest in my country, I will have better ability to manage it, store it, skim it, whatever, right? uh, is it really a effective way? I don't know, honestly, but yes, the preferred way at this stage is certainly data at rest. But yes, when you are doing software engineering, I will highly recommend that don't think about rest. Think about the possibilities that, okay, can you really control data in transit? Motion, internet is an open world. It's very tough. You cannot encrypt the entire internet, right? But yes, motion is something which you can think of. Secure APIs, tight coupling, integrated layer, SecOps, DevOps. These things are giving you a lot of these considerations, so you can think of it. Aryan, have a question? Yeah, Aryan, sorry, go ahead.
I believe that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Ricky. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of all our students that we learned a great deal about privacy today. I, for one, definitely gained a very new and immeasurably valuable perspective on the subject. Thank you again, Dr. Ricky.